You're listening to the Global Research News Hour, broadcasting from CKUW 95.9 FM in Winnipeg and from partnering radio stations across Canada and the United States. So we have someone who can point to evidence contradicting established narratives about the Pacific Palisades fires burning now for over 20 days rather. His name is Robert Brame. He's a botanist and a forensic arborist who's been studying plants in nature with science plant books in hand for nearly half a century, and he's been a mountain climber and has cooked on campfires for about the same amount of time. He looked at the evidence of the recent forest fires in California and found the pattern was vastly different from what is evident in traditional forest fires. Robert Braid, it is a pleasure having you on the Global Research News Hour. Welcome to the show.
Oh, well, it's nice to be on here. Thank you very much.
Some scientists have been trying to correct what they call conspiracy theories about what caused the fires to spread. Some of them say that people naturally feel the need to point to an explanation they can understand. Hence, it was created by humans. Do you think this might be one element of the dissenting perspective you are talking about, or are they just way off base?
Well, if you're talking about supposed arsonists lighting these fires, I think that rarely happens. I'm not ruling it out, but I believe that's rarely happens because these are not the same flames.
Well, you mentioned the fires that you witnessed way back in Northern California, Santa Rosa area about in 2017. It got you questioning what really happened because of the strange phenomenon you witnessed. Briefly, if you could you mention a few of the phenomena you witnessed that were not consistent with the heat from conventional fires and the damage they do to everything in its path?
Yeah, why sure. When I first saw the pictures up there, and I noticed 4,700 homes had turned to white ash, and there was no black, no carbon anywhere. And the photos I saw on the internet, I saw trees everywhere, all kinds of species, unburned, untouched. So when I went up there and started analyzing this place, I found plastics around the yards, such as children's play structures, plastic swimming pools above ground, rubber garden hoses, trampolines, synthetics, all untouched unless there's metal in close proximity. And then, of course, when I get into the trees, more of my expertise, I notice the trees that hold the most water, especially your extreme water lovers that just are filled with water, the willow, cottonwood, alder, birch, aspen, even the maples, madrones, and the oak trees. Oak trees hold a ton of water. They're burning from the inside out. First of all, these trees are very, very wet. There's no reason for a flame to be burning the middles out and leaving the leaves untouched. They may be brown or light shaded green, but they're not burned up, no matter what species I look at. Unless, of course, they're right next to metals, like a home, and I mean close, 10 feet or closer. The rest are not burning up. And then when you get into the coniferous trees, the pines, spruce, fir, larch, things like that, cedars, they should be burning up, and they're not. And they are cooking from the inside out, but at a much slower rate because they don't have that liquidy, watery juice in them. It's more sappy. And when it comes to the sap, that sap in a pine ignites just under 200 degrees, and they're not burning up like they normally should. Pine needles touching the ground, and the flames refuse to ignite them. And the same goes with your eucalyptus genus. Most combustible leaves I know of, you can light them on fire with a small campfire very easily. It's one of my fire starters when I'm camping around the lowlands. But that sums up most of it. Everything that should burn doesn't, and everything that is burning shouldn't be burning. And I'm finding that at every aftermath I go to.
So you mentioned something like the watery areas that have water going through them that burns up?
Yes, somehow it heats up very quickly and ignites and burns these trees from the inside out. which generally happens only in the oldest trees. We see it a lot in fruit trees because we cut them in half, prune them drastically, and they hollow out over 10 to 40 years. They just hollow out. But not these adult trees that have 100% leaves all over them. There's no dieback on them, yet they're hollowed out, and they fall over, and you'll see them burn from the inside out all the way down into the roots and subterranean roots everywhere, burned out, and the trees fall over.
Yeah.
And many of these places are in short grass where it's cattle country. Range cattle are out there, and it's September, October. They eat the grass down to 2 to 4 inches. It's gone. There's not enough combustible material left to warrant burning these things up, even burning up the leaves. So that's what's happening. The trees that hold the most water are the ones that burn first, not last.
Yeah, well, it sounds like the same kind of pattern as when I put food in a microwave oven. That it's because it's not the heat from the coils that are going into it. It's like you say, the water and the fat inside heats up, and that's the source of what cooks it. And you also mentioned how metal also gets charged. And that's what happens in the microwave oven as well. Is it essentially the same kind of pattern? Is it are essentially a forest being put inside a microwave oven?
That's the closest I would equate it to. The metals are on fire, whether they're ferrous or non-ferrous, like your vehicles. Aluminum rims or alloy rims are all melting out, without exception. Every car I've seen in 7 years, if they're alloys or aluminum, they're melted out, and they'll keep flowing in a liquid state, perhaps 20 feet from a vehicle on pavement, and there's nothing out there to keep it liquefied. It should be cooling off rapidly, but it doesn't. It just keeps on going. And, of course, your windows, too, your auto glass melting at 2,500 degrees, and that's only the starting point. Perhaps it goes up to 27 or even 3,000 degrees. And the windows are melting out, and that's every vehicle I've seen in 7 years, and no exceptions.
And I guess you'd say that the fire is currently burning in like right now in the Palisades. That is the same pattern that you've discovered so far?
Yes, every large fire in Southern California, I've seen all the pictures on the internet. It's the same thing. Trees are virtually untouched, and homes are turned to white ash. And I see plastics. You see the plastic garbage cans, the recycle bins in the street. If you get there quick enough and get in there, you'll find all this material that's untouched. But if they don't let you in for the fear of your safety, they bring trucks in at some point and take everything off your property because they don't want the evidence of materials that were unburned that should have burned. And I'm seeing this everywhere. If I get in there quick enough, I find materials everywhere, even paper and plastic and cardboard. Synthetic flags, they won't burn. Yeah.
I know that. I mean, you know all of the you've burned every kind of wood that's out there. You know, the redwoods, the Douglas firs, and so on and so forth. And you could, even before you go on the scene, you could say, okay, this is how they should burn, and then you're seeing a totally different pattern, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I've backpacked, from sea level to 14,000 feet, and timberline can be up to 12,000 feet in some of the higher Sierra areas. I've burned everything, just throughout the state. I know what burns and what doesn't. And even in a standard normal wood fire that we know of, oak trees don't burn. Their leaves are fire retardant. There's too much water in them. There's not enough dead wood in them to warrant flames. If they're short, in the brush areas, they'll burn along with the other more combustible shrubs. But take the flame away, they go out. Oak trees don't burn up. And all the conifers, I've burned them all. Mostly it's the pine family. And there's also incense cedar and red cedar in California. I've burned everything. 50 years of this.
Well,
or even things that shouldn't be in the fire, I've tried to burn them. And in a little campfire, I can burn any leaf in California in 1 minute. If I have a little campfire going, it doesn't matter what the leaf is. And I'm seeing horrific firestorms, and the leaves are not burned. Or seldom. It's seldom.
Well, I checked through Snopes.com for the facts they say about the Pacific Palisades, so-called conspiracy theories, and they touched on a report by University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources, which said even in cases of severe fire behavior and high tree mortality, most trees are not completely consumed, and the main trunk will remain standing, although the leaves, needles, and branches may be gone. I don't know. How do you respond to scientific reports like that?
Well, like that sounds correct, because I've been on some normal fires in the High Sierra, and the poles are left. The bole of the tree, limbless, maybe a few limbs, holes through the trunk. That's in a firestorm. That's what's left. The main trunk, and it might not be 100 feet tall. It might be 40 feet tall now, or even a stump. It will really burn well because of the sap inside, and limbless, and they don't leave needles. That would be your number one combustible material for any forest fire is the needles, and of course all the mulch on the ground, all the leaves that build up over so many years.
Have you tried to bring these issues to the attention of the general public? I mean, beyond podcasts and such. I mean, have you talked to any major press about it?
Major press, none. I wouldn't. They're told not to listen to me. I'm sure of it. They like hearing the lies of the media. Very few firemen understand what I talk about. They don't have the background I do. A few fire captains like John Lord and Matt Dakin, the two 30-year fire captains that analyzed Santa Rosa and Paradise, they became fast friends, and they understand everything, all the technology used. We became fast friends. But the media has done its job. The six media giants has brainwashed everybody to believe their narrative, their false narrative. The real conspiracy is everything out of their mouth. They can question me, but it's just misinformation coming from their mouths, not mine. I've studied this for way too long.
So given your inability to find an explanation for what you've seen in nature, is there any human invention that you may be aware of that might have produced this sort of outcome?
I would just be guessing at that. Some types of laser technology is the closest I would come up with, but it's just a wild guess. We have all that weaponry in the Navy and the Air Force and different branches of military. They have all kinds of different laser-type weapons. They're even advertised on YouTube, and you see all the videos with the Athena laser and the trillion-watt laser, which was developed less than 20 miles from my house. But it's all guesswork. We have no idea exactly what they're building and what they're using against the citizens.
I next connected with Elana Freeland. She is a writer, ghostwriter, lecturer, storyteller, and teacher who researches and writes on deep state issues, including the stories of survivors of MK-Ultra, ritual abuse, and invasive electromagnetic weapons. She has written a trilogy on the topic of geoengineering, and her fourth book, The Geoengineered Transhuman, The Hidden Technologies of HARP, Chemtrails, 5G, 6G, Nanotechnology, Synthetic Biology, and the Scientific Effort to Transform Humanity, comes out next week. I asked her for her opinion on what had happened in the fires near Los Angeles.
Listen to Mr. Brame, the arborist, and I'd listened before to him. He's very good. And he talks about how the trees are burning from the inside out. And he talks about how the fact that metals are on fire, which is strange, and that the pool of liquid remains even after the warmth factor is less, how windows are melting in automobiles, and homes are really turned entirely to white ash. So, these are things that are not about wildfires. They're not about forest fires. They're not about arson. You can't do this with arson. What is happening is coming from the sky. And it's called a directed energy weapon. And I thought I would read from this This is a patent US 103378441B2 of a directed energy weapon.
So it actually exists. Like, there's no controversy there.
No. It's a device that directs a beam of high energy content toward a target for incapacitating or destroying the target, the high energy beam being a laser beam causing structural damage to the target. Okay, so this is called the blue laser patent, by the way, and those who talk about the blue roofs, etc., that's exactly what this patent is about, is a particular frequency of patent of a laser that produces a certain quality of destruction. So there were a couple of things that happened during that time. The January 7 fires, and they went on from there for several days in Los Angeles. That was 23 fires last I checked. It was interesting on January 16 how SpaceX, Elon Musk's SpaceX, launched its Starship Flight 7 with a, quote, test payload deployment of Starlink simulators with 160 gigabytes for uplink and 1 terabyte for downlink. This happens to be more tech, 10 times the amount than the downlink and 24 times the uplink capacity of the V2 mini Starlink satellites. In other words, it looks like on that date, that was January 16, that's several days after the January 7 beginning of the fires in Los Angeles, seems like they needed more communication regarding the quantity of what was going on with the satellites, what was being broadcast from the satellite. My guess is what was being broadcast from the satellite was indeed a laser, and that it was busy creating plasma in our skies. Our skies are intensely ionized, and what that basically means is there, because of the U.S. military's control over the ionosphere, we are able to keep our sky ionized as long as we have these jets flying with the so-called chemtrails and spreading particulates in the air all 24/7.
So it's basically, you're saying that all this activity that is being generated in the ionosphere, they're leaving fingerprints behind, right?
Not fingerprints. No, we're actually grabbing ions from the ionosphere, and we can target anywhere in the world to a postage stamp with those ions. And so this is a massive weapon system. And so in the fire, I mentioned Elon Musk's preparation of something on the 16th of January. And then at the same time, his name is George Webb, a wonderful investigative journalist, really goes right to the place where he's writing about instead of sitting in his armchair. And he talked about how the Pacific Palisades fire was due to a live fire live exercise, military style, called a SIMEX, which stands for simulation exercise. They set that up right there in Palisades, and it was considered an exercise by probably most everyone who was involved in it, but was far from an exercise. And to do that, they would have needed an AI partner. And George posits that it was a company called DeepSeek AI. So, you know, these institutions, the whole thing of geoengineering is a massive industry, making piles of money for some corporations and some deep pockets. And it's important for us we're going to have to go beyond waiting to be spoon-fed the news as to these very secret projects. Now, how it works, I want to spend most of my time on that. I have a few more minutes, I hope.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going 1,000 miles an hour. I apologize
You're
for
doing
that.
okay.
So let's start with the Death Star. I mentioned it, Tesla. Everyone knows, I assume, that Mr. Trump, Donald Trump, is the nephew of a man named John Trump, who was an electrical engineer at the time that Nikola Tesla was died, and all of his research stolen by our FBI. And all of that research, anything that was hands-on, or all of the documents that were then available, this is pre-electronic era, in 1943, all of that was passed to John Trump. He became a very famous person, very important person, because he was the turnkey by which you could understand and get access to Tesla technology. And that's what this whole program is, this geoengineering that serves the secret space program that Elon Musk and Mr. Trump are so committed to now, to go to Mars, et cetera. So the Death Star, which is basically, it has to be the HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska, and a very impressive phased array antenna, ionospheric heater that was capable of being used to determine control over the entire ionosphere, which begins about 50 miles up above our planet and surrounds our planet. It's a sort of way to protect it from the solar extremes. And instead, all of this has now been weaponized, including the ionosphere. So what I want you to get from this one piece I'm quoting from in the book, in the chapter which has to do with entirely with the fires, geoengineered fires, is that a certain type of mirror has been developed. It's called an LDAL, laser developed atmospheric lens. And with this, it works as a high-powered Fresnel lens to concentrate low-powered light into a tightly focused beam to ignite fires and burn cars like a mean little kid with a magnifying glass trained on a hill of ants. With high-pulsed lasers, portions of Earth's atmosphere are changed into a lens-like plasma mirror that magnify or change the path of electromagnetic light. Our new constantly ionized air means these space-based lasers that are managed from satellites are multi-purpose and able to create deflector shields for defense and magnifying lenses for assault, or even blue beam phantom images, which some of you have heard of blue beam. So that is a done deal. That's been up and running for at least 40 years. And then I want to read this that I write. First of all, let's quote Greg Reese with his wonderful 5-minute videos. I love that series. He did one called the CCP Satellites Over Maui at Times of Fire, September 4, 2023. And he said, the most efficient way to ignite a fire on the surface of the Earth from a satellite in Earth orbit would be to paint the target in segments by pulsing the laser with an advanced targeting system. Fired from a satellite, the Earth's atmosphere will absorb and scatter some of the laser energy. And so the laser would need to be in a wavelength range that minimizes this. The most effective wavelength would be the near infrared range, invisible to the eye. It would also have a minimal reaction with objects colored blue on the Earth's surface. There's the answer to the blue roofs. The power of the laser would need to be in the hundreds of kilowatts range. And so the calculations on a 10 megawatt laser firing from Earth orbit, assuming that the atmosphere loss amounts to 50% of the overall power and only 5 megawatts reaches the surface as a 1 square meter beam, it would ignite a fire almost instantly. If this 50 megawatt beam was pulsed across a 1 meter by 1 mile long area in segments, then the time to ignite the entire area would be roughly 2.7 minutes.
Yeah.
So note there, that was a description of the Maui fire. And you remember how it went along the beach, basically, and was really narrow. And Maui's very, very small. I've been to Maui. But compare that with LA, where you have miles of Los Angeles, miles spread out. It's well known for that. Mm-hmm. So you need something a little more juicy in order to do an area like that. So now I read this. Citizen eyewitness accounts from drone footage and cell phone cameras have been invaluable in terms of recording the sequence of these wildfire events that proves they follow a pattern that is not wild at all, beginning up to 3 days in advance with jets and drones strafing the sky over the target zone with nano metal alloys, sensors, and chemicals to determine the indices of refraction necessary for the operation. Ignition of nanoswarm brigades in the chemtrailed air and already in the drought-compacted soil may precede the laser ignition from the heavens of the actual wildfires. As ignition occurs, onlookers may or may not see the telltale shaft of blue light, thanks to power lines, underground fiber optic cables, nearby microwave towers, and iPhones and cars acting as conductors and antennas. A microwave energy field is created right there in the sky, and plasma fires can be ignited like they are combusting, like they are bombed. So that's the answer to the people who keep not bothering me, but bothering other people I know about how you cannot create plasma in the atmosphere. That is absolutely not true, because our entire atmosphere, those clouds that you look up at, the clouds that become cloud cover, all the way to the puffy clouds that look like, the old clouds of many years ago, these are all plasma clouds. These are not the clouds that nature used to make with water vapor and particulates. That is not happening anymore. It is as though we live in a circuit board contrived atmosphere now. And you can't see it because you're ignorant of this technology. That's why I've written I can't believe I've written 4 books about this.
Yeah.
Why have I written 4 books? Because this is the biggest, most nasty elephant in the living room. And hardly anyone knows about it. The CIA and its friends have done a fabulous job in covering it up in broad day. And we must learn about this technology so we're prepared for these events that have only just begun as they decide that they need a smart city here, and they want more of the particular kind of ash, the sulfur in the ash of these fires. They want it up in the stratosphere. This is planetary engineering with a vendetta, and the human cost is not on their minds at all.
That was Elana Freeland, writer on geoengineering, providing an alternative argument for the Pacific Palisades fires. And that's it for the program. Tune in next week for a conversation about some of the military upheavals around the world centered around the black population. You're listening to the Global Research News Hour, a program funded by the Center for Research on Globalization and produced in collaboration with campus community radio station CKUW 95.9 FM in Winnipeg on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ininu, Ojibwe, Dene, and Dakota, the birthplace of the Métis Nation and the heart of the Métis Nation homeland. The show airs on partner radio stations across Canada and the United States and is available for streaming or download at the site globalresearch.ca. To leave feedback on this program, please email globalresearchnewshour@gmail.com. I've been your host, Michael Welch. Thanks once again for joining us.